Well, today we're going to witness a very interesting situation where a congressman, and I'm not afraid to say it, destroys Pam Bondi over the Epstein files cover-up.
How many have you indicted?
Excuse me, I'm going to answer the question.
Answer my question.
No, I'm going to
Yes.
answer the question
How?
the way I want to answer the question.
No,
Your
you're going to answer the
theatrics are
question the way I
ridiculous.
asked it.
In a congressional hearing that became one of the most talked about moments of Attorney General Pam Bondi's testimony, Representative Jerry Nadler delivered what many observers have called a systematic dismantling of the Department of Justice's priorities under her leadership. Over the course of roughly 5 minutes, Nadler laid out a damning contrast: the DOJ's relentless pursuit of Donald Trump's political enemies versus its complete failure to prosecute any of Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirators. The hearing took place with Epstein survivors present in the room, a detail Nadler acknowledged at the outset. What followed was a methodical presentation of evidence about how the DOJ has allocated its resources, who it has chosen to investigate, and who it has chosen to protect. Let's start with how Nadler framed the issue and laid out a specific example.
I want to begin by acknowledging the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's horrific abuse who are in the room with us today. I want to thank all of you for your bravery in speaking out. I want to say that you and the other survivors of these heinous crimes deserve better from this Department of Justice. In particular, it is shocking that the department did not redact the names of Epstein's victims, but it did redact the names of their abusers. I don't know whether this was done out of incompetence or whether it was deliberate and malicious, but either way, it is completely unacceptable. Even more troubling, the DOJ has failed to bring any of these perpetrators to justice. Instead, it has engaged in a relentless pursuit of Donald Trump's perceived enemies. I want to focus on just one example: the Attorney General of my home state of New York, Tish James. This DOJ has been hell-bent on securing an indictment against Ms. James for something, anything, simply because she held Donald Trump's companies accountable for years of financial fraud. And indeed, the department manufactured an investigation against her for alleged, quote, mortgage fraud. But the U.S. attorney leading the investigation, Eric Siebert, a Trump appointee, refused to bring charges against Ms. James because there was simply no evidence. Unfortunately, a prosecutor who refuses to do Trump's bidding has no place in this DOJ, so Mr. Siebert was forced out. Trump could not contain his fury that he expressed to you in a social media post addressed to you by name. I'm sure you've seen it. Quote, I fired him and there is a great case, he wrote to you about Mr. Siebert. Then we moved down. We can't delay any longer. It's killing our reputation and credibility. They impeached me twice and indicted me 5 times over nothing. Justice must be served now. And obviously, you followed that order. Lindsay Halligan, Trump's former defense lawyer who had never prosecuted a case in her life, was installed to replace Mr. Siebert, and it was clear that part of her mandate was to go after Ms. James. Halligan immediately sought an indictment, which a court dismissed because Halligan was illegally put into the role. But your department was undeterred, and not once, but twice, it tried to indict Attorney General James in separate courts. Both grand juries rejected you and refused to indict her.
Nadler begins by speaking directly to Epstein survivors who attended the hearing. According to CBS News reporting from February 2026, attorneys for a group of survivors stated that the Justice Department failed to redact the identities of at least 31 people who were victimized as children when it released millions of pages of Epstein files on January 30th, 2026. Sky Roberts, the brother of Virginia Giuffre, one of Epstein's most vocal accusers who died by suicide in 2025, told CBS that the DOJ was redacting the names of perpetrators and unredacting the names of victims. Quite the opposite of what the Epstein Files Transparency Act was meant to do. Survivors and their attorneys have described the release as potentially the single most egregious violation of victim privacy in one day in United States history, according to a letter filed by attorneys Brittany Henderson and Brad Edwards. One survivor, Danielle Bensky, told NBC News that initially she thought it was carelessness, then incompetence, but now it feels a bit deliberate. It feels like a bit of an attack on survivors. Then Nadler pivots to what he describes as a contrasting priority: the pursuit of Letitia James. According to ABC News, reporting from September 2025, Eric Siebert, the acting U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, was forced to resign on September 19, 2025, after months of pressure from Trump and senior administration officials to pursue criminal charges against James. ABC reported that Siebert left after being notified of Trump's intention to fire him because federal prosecutors had declined to indict James on mortgage fraud charges. Trump did indeed post publicly about the situation. According to Newsweek, Trump posted, "I fired him, and there's a great case" on his social media platform, explicitly stating justice must be served now and framing the investigation of James as retribution for being impeached and indicted. After Siebert's removal, Lindsay Halligan was installed as a special prosecutor. According to PBS News reporting from November 2025, Halligan is one of Trump's former personal attorneys and had never prosecuted a case in her career. A federal judge dismissed the cases against both James Comey and Letitia James in November 2025, ruling that Halligan had been illegally appointed by the Department of Justice. Despite that dismissal, according to Wikipedia's article on the prosecution of Letitia James, the DOJ attempted to secure indictments through grand juries twice in December 2025. On December 4th, a grand jury declined to indict James. On December 11th, a second federal grand jury in Alexandria, Virginia, similarly declined to indict her. 2 refusals in 1 week in 2 different jurisdictions. Now watch as Nadler explains just how extraordinary this is and expands the pattern beyond just Letitia James.
It is practically unheard of for a grand jury to refuse an indictment. In 2016, it happened in just 6 cases out of over 150,000 offenses. And you had it happen twice in the same week, in 2 different courts. That must have been humiliating. And now there are reports you are continuing to investigate her. The amount of resources that have gone into targeting Attorney General James, months of investigations, multiple failed indictments, is astounding. Since your own prosecutors told you that there is not enough evidence to support a conviction, it's clear that you were going after her simply because she held President Trump accountable and he wants to punish her. And she is just one name on a long list of Trump political enemies that DOJ is reportedly targeting. From Jerome Powell and Lisa Cook at the Federal Reserve to James Comey, numerous Democratic members of Congress, John Brennan, Jack Smith, Democratic officials in Minnesota, Chris Krebs, Miles Taylors, and more. And those are just the ones we know about. In contrast to these politically motivated investigations, grasping at something they can charge their enemies with, we now have concrete evidence of disgusting criminality revealed in the Epstein files. So I really have just one question for you. How many of Epstein's co-conspirators have you indicted? How many perpetrators are you even investigating?
The statistic Nadler cites 6 refusals out of over 150,000 cases in 2016 illustrates just how rare grand jury refusals are. Grand juries are famously willing to indict because prosecutors control the presentation of evidence without defense attorneys present. The refusal rate is approximately 0.004%. For the DOJ to fail to secure an indictment once is unusual. To fail twice in the same week suggests either extraordinarily weak evidence or grand juries that found the prosecution itself problematic. According to reporting from the New York Sun dated February 12, 2026, the DOJ has continued attempting to revive the investigation into James even after these failures, reportedly appointing yet another prosecutor despite 2 grand jury refusals and a federal judge's ruling that the prosecutorial appointments were unlawful. Nadler then expands the frame to show this isn't just about Letitia James. According to PBS News reporting from January 2026, the documented pattern of DOJ investigations includes Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. The DOJ served grand jury subpoenas related to testimony about Federal Reserve building renovations, which Powell stated he believed was actually pressure to lower interest rates. Former FBI Director James Comey, indicted in September 2025 on charges of making false statements to Congress, though the case was dismissed in November 2025. Former CIA Director John Brennan, target of a grand jury investigation in Florida related to the Russia election interference investigation. Jack Smith, the former special prosecutor who led investigations into Trump, is under investigation by the Office of Special Counsel. Senator Adam Schiff being investigated by the DOJ for alleged insurance fraud, with Bondi naming a special prosecutor. 6 members of Congress. Prosecutors sought indictments in February 2026, but the grand jury refused, according to ABC News. Senator Mark Kelly, the DOJ attempted to secure an indictment. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth later censured him. The contrast Nadler draws is stark. Enormous DOJ resources devoted to investigating Trump's political opponents versus 0 prosecutions of Epstein co-conspirators, despite what Nadler describes as concrete evidence of disgusting criminality. And then comes the moment that dominated news coverage. Watch what happens when Bondi is asked to answer the question.
You showed it. I find it.
How many have you indicted?
Excuse me. I'm going to answer the question.
Answer my question.
No, I'm going to answer the question the way I want to answer the question.
No,
Your
you're going to answer the
theatrics are
question the
ridiculous.
way I asked it.
Chairman Jordan, I'm not going to get in the gutter with these people,
How many
but
have
I'm
you-
going to answer the question.
How many have you indicted?
Again, the time belongs to
Reclaiming my time.
the time belongs.
I think it's very
Reclaiming
interesting.
my time.
I think it's very
Reclaiming my
interesting
time.
You can
that
reclaim
he
your
talks
time,
about
but
they
reclaiming my time,
indicted.
Mr.
The
Chairman.
president said they
Close the
indicted
clock.
him
Mr.
twice.
Chairman, please
They
stop the
sure
clock
did.
and stop the
he
clock and
indicted-
restore his time.
Okay, here we go with these
Committee will be in order.
theatrics.
The
Reclaiming
time
my
belongs
time
to the
and
gentleman
build back
from
the
New
clock,
York.
please.
We will give you a few more seconds. We will do that. But when
Reclaiming
you ask
my-
a question, the witness
question
gets to
was-
answer. You may not like the answer, but she
Right.
gets to
The
answer.
question was, how many of Epstein's...
They don't like
Que-
the answer,
Reclaiming
Chairman,
my time.
because it's honest.
Reclaiming
So
my-
he asked a
Reclaiming my
4-minute
time.
question.
Restore 45
and
seconds to
I
Mr.
am
Nadler,
going
please,
to
Mr. Chairman.
Answer.
You can let her filibuster all day long, but not on our watch.
Reclaiming-
Not on our time. No way. And I
Reclaiming-
told you about that, Attorney General, before you started.
You don't tell me
Yeah, oh, I
anything,
did tell you because we
washed
saw
up
what you did in the
loser
Senate.
Lawyer, not even a lawyer.
Committee will be in order.
Time, and I should get back at least 45 seconds.
We will give you a few more seconds. I
Not a
said that
few more,
already.
45 seconds.
Okay, I'm timing right now, Mr. Nadler. Go
All
ahead.
right.
Reclaiming my time. The answer to my question, how many of Epstein's co-conspirators has she indicted, is 0. You have been the Attorney General for a whole year, and your DOJ fired the lead prosecutor of this case, sat on evidence this entire time, and claimed falsely last July that there were no more leads. It took an act of Congress for you to finally release part of the Epstein files, and when you did, you included personal information about the victims while protecting the names of abusers.
Time of the gentleman
None of
has
the perpetrators
expired.
have been brought to justice.
Bondi never answered Nadler's question. Instead, she accused him of being in the gutter and attempted to deflect. Chairman Jim Jordan, a Republican from Ohio, intervened multiple times to protect Bondi from having to provide a direct answer, arguing over time allocations and procedures. The answer, as Nadler stated, is 0. According to multiple reports, the only person convicted in connection with Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking operation is Ghislaine Maxwell, who is serving a 20-year sentence. Despite draft indictments from 2007 that named 3 unnamed co-conspirators who worked for Epstein, and despite FBI documents that listed multiple individuals as potential co-conspirators, no additional prosecutions have been brought. FBI Director Kash Patel testified in September 2025 that there was no credible information that Epstein trafficked girls to others besides himself. However, according to CNN reporting from February 2026, documents released by the DOJ include a draft indictment from the 2000s that would have charged Epstein alongside 3 others, described as facilitating appointments between Epstein and girls. Those names remain redacted. The DOJ released Epstein files in multiple batches, first in December 2025 with heavy redactions, then over 3 million pages on January 30th, 2026. Congressional representatives who reviewed unredacted versions told NPR that they found names of individuals wrongly redacted, accusing the DOJ of covering up identities. Meanwhile, survivors' names were left exposed. The comparison Nadler drew is stark. A prosecutor who refused to indict Letitia James without evidence was fired. Trump's personal lawyer was installed despite having no prosecution experience. 2 grand juries were convened. Both refused to indict. The DOJ is reportedly still investigating. Similar patterns apply to James Comey, Adam Schiff, Jerome Powell, and others. Meanwhile, according to Nadler's presentation, the DOJ fired the lead Epstein prosecutor, claimed there were no more leads, fought the release of files until Congress passed passed legislation requiring it, exposed victims' names while protecting abusers' identities, and has not indicted a single co-conspirator in the year Bondi has served as Attorney General. If this kind of accountability matters to you, consider subscribing.